Hi everyone. Welcome to this session, Thai Global Summit. I am Raghubabu, Thai Charter Member from Hyderabad. I run, corporate legal services firm out of Hyderabad. Welcome to the speakers, Manish and Dayakar and Mohit. This is a very, very interesting topic, besides the business plan and the numbers and all of that. As an investor, we should know what is in the mind of the investors. So that, you can do a great pitch. That's what is in the offer today, next 40 minutes. Let me introduce Mohit and then give it to, who is going to moderate this session and take it forward. The panel, very, diverse background, the hacker comes from the US and India background. The other two investors comes from an extensive experience in the investing world. Let me introduce Mohit. Mohit Gulati is the managing partner of the 20 million ITI Growth Opportunities Venture Capital Fund. He has 10 years of experience in the investment and fund management space. In his individual capacity, Mohit has led first round deals across e-commerce express, Grab.in, Local Banya, Captain Jack, HumorMe, and over a dozen early stage ventures. With the ITI group of 21 businesses, the technology fund under Mohit specializes on investments in health tech, new age FMCG brands, SaaS, IoT, and new age mobility logistics. The fund currently has over 10 active investments. Thank you, Mohit, and welcome you and take over from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raghu, for the introduction. I hope you guys can hear me properly.
Yes.
All right. So please allow me to introduce the panel. I've got two distinguished investors here. I'm going to start off with a quote which says that there's a little bit of Motorola in all of us. But in this panel, there definitely is a lot of Motorola. So both Dayakar and Manish, are ex-Motorola at some point in time in their lives. To put things into perspective, and I'm going to rub this in with a little bit of an age quote here. When Manish started his journey at IIT Kanpur, I was just born. When Dayakar started his journey at Motorola, I was just born. So it gives me extreme pleasure in introducing two people who have a cumulative experience more than my age. So Manish, who's also been a very dear friend with 23 years of operating experience, he's the founding partner of Pi Ventures. He's prior to Pi Ventures, he was instrumental in co-founding today what is regarded as one of the largest angel investment platform called Let's Venture, which has almost democratized the way angel investing in India works. Prior to that, he was part of Sling Media, which is a Valley-based consumer electronics startup. He's got multiple patents on his name. He was part of the MPEG-4 standard, and he holds a bunch of pretty interesting patents on his name. So Manish, thank you so much for taking time out.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Dayakar Puskur, he basically needs no introduction. Old hand. He's the reason why all of us today are on Office 365. He's the reason why Microsoft is making money head over fist today. Dayakar runs a $50 million venture fund called the Dallas Venture Fund. He's joining us from the US. Dayakar has had a distinguished career, a very impressive track record in the mobility space. Even the White House has appreciated his contribution and called him a visionary in that space. He's headed the P&L at Motorola. He was also and it was very interesting for everyone to know he was also an entrepreneur himself prior to founding this fund. So he has that side of experience too, where he built JP Mobile from scratch and then sold it ahead to Microsoft. He's also owned the P&L at Motorola. So I'm extremely excited in bringing you guys under this umbrella, and hopefully we can have a completely candid discussion, talk on what really is in the minds of investors. For audience out there, we promise to not make this a generic run-of-the-mill sort of a session. We won't talk about our achievements because I don't think we've achieved that much. We are still on a learning journey. So with not too much ado, I would love to just jump into my first question. to both my panelists, which is basically, the 101 difference between entrepreneurship and being an investor. For the audience out there, investors are like people, are like mythical creatures, sort of quasi unicorns walking planet Earth, probably driving Ferraris and living in large mansions. I wish that was true. It ain't that true, at least not for me, and I'm not too sure about these two guys. Dayakar, you've been an entrepreneur yourself, now an investor. Manish, you've come from corporate world and then been an investor. I think it's very important for us to kind of dispel the myth around what is the distinguishing factor between an entrepreneur and an investor. So, would love to hear your thoughts, guys.
Sure, sure. I can go first. Thanks again, Mohit. Thanks to TGS 2020, especially to Hyderabad team, and doing a pretty big event. I know it's not easy to do a virtual event. So far, I've been seeing like a unbelievable success. So thanks again to everybody. So as Mohit, as you mentioned, like I've been on both sides of the pine right now. So if I look at really, when I started my company and again leading the company. When I get up in the morning, first thing I used to think about only JP Mobile. That's it. I didn't have anything else to think about. 150% focus on only JP Mobile. Right? How do we really make this company successful? What is my vision? Is what is my the mission is to make sure like my rest of the team really helped me because you had to have that passion as an entrepreneur to drive your rest of the team with you. So I think that's what I used to focus. So when I look at right now. If you ask me like the last 8 years as a investor, that's what I call myself an entrepreneur investing other entrepreneurs. So I feel like now when I get up, I think about now we invested one more company, 22 companies totally we invested. I would say in that one there are close to maybe right now there are 12 or 13 active companies. Last few years investments, and I would say like I really think about every one of them every day. So in that way. It's really, I know, as you mentioned, like, people, when they see from outside, venture looks very rosy and really somebody driving a Ferrari car, I say like it's not. I think if you ask me, like, I would love to be an entrepreneur, actually, than really an investor. But again, it has definitely one thing I would say, like, it gives me immense pleasure. Especially when we invest in companies, when they are young and really, no revenue or small revenue, how they grow, how they solve a problem. That's where really gives me a lot of pleasure really to see these companies grow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Manish, your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually think that at least for me, when I was building Pi, it is like any other entrepreneurship. So I still feel that building a venture from scratch is as much entrepreneurship as anything else. This is probably my fifth venture. Done Let's Venture, done Sling, Ethium, and then in between a consulting company as well. So this is my fifth entrepreneurship stint. So from one perspective, it is one and the same. You still think about getting up early, as Dayakar said, and think about how you can take Pi forward every day. And that is very much no different than I was running any other startup. However, there are some critical differences as well, because the nature of this business is very different than building one startup, right, which is focused on one problem solving. Here, it is a multi-dimensional sort of a problem that you have to solve. On one end, you have to raise the money, which by itself is a non-trivial task, ages you in a very accelerated fashion. On the other, you have to get the deals done on, and raising money is probably 5 to 10x harder than when I raised money as a startup. It was actually, I found it much more easier than raising money as a venture fund, because in a venture fund, you are raising, first of all, large corpuses, mainly on concept, because you're saying that this is my thesis and I'll find companies in it. Whereas as a startup, you can show some product, etc. So I think those things are very different. On the other hand, the challenges of building a team on a small budget, challenges of finding access to the right companies at the right time, working with the founders to help them realize their visions, and in certain cases, working on exits. So I think this is a sort of it adds so many other dimensions to it. And one thing that distinctly I feel different in running a company versus running a fund. Both are entrepreneurship of different nature. Is one is that lot of things in venture are there are more things in venture which are out of your control, and whereas there are more things in control as a startup founder that you can do influence. So I think one of the biggest partner you need to have in this journey is God. You should pray to God morning and evening, because there is a lot of things which are out of your control, and literally at the mercy of a lot of other stuff that can go here and there.
Yeah, I commonly tell people, people who ask me, that you're running a venture fund, how does it feel? I just tell them that, it's the most humbling experience of my life. I have not faced so much rejection in anything. Not my teachers, not my parents. Nobody's rejected me so many times over and over again. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for throwing some light on that. Another question, which I think a lot of our entrepreneurial friends have been wanting to ask us, right? And it's a little bit of a fine line between investor wits and arrogance, right? So and that's the nature of our job, right? We have these elevator pitches that we are given so many times, or we're doing a Zoom meeting with a particular startup, which lasts probably an hour or maybe an hour and a half, and inherently, there's a little bit of a tingling feeling which tells us that we will do this or we will not make this investment, right? There's the bias that we already have in our minds, or maybe it's just we feel that we are smart enough to know whether this particular entrepreneur can scale this up or not. So really want to understand. See, from an entrepreneur's perspective, they are literally slogging day in, day out, putting their sweat and blood into building a business for 6 months, a year before they actually get that call with us or a meeting with us. They really want to, a lot of people, I actually crowdsourced this question. A lot of entrepreneurs want to know what exactly are investors thinking about when we are pitching to them in an elevator pitch or a 1 hour pitch. And are they so smart enough that they can say whether I will do well or I won't do well, or is it just arrogance? I think will be good to hear your thoughts on it.
Sure.
Go ahead, Manish. Wow.
You want me to go first? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Don't dodge the question, guys.
No, I'm dodging the question. I want to give Manish first, then I'll go for it. No, that's all right.
Yeah, not dodging it. I think a very interesting question and a very pertinent one as well, right? So I'll take a parallel of this, right? Ultimately, VC's job is actually a lot about judging. You're constantly judging in those pitches. There is a parallel of this in interviewing process. So when I'm interviewing someone for a position, right, worldwide, for anything, right, you need not be VC for any position. There is a research which says that most of the interviewers make their decision about the person in the first 30 seconds of the interview.
True.
And what is the rest of the time? The rest of the time is somewhere subconsciously you are trying to justify what your first 30 seconds of decision is, right? And that inherent bias actually goes and very much goes into every startup pitch you hear as an investor. Now, if this is human tendency, how do you work with it? Because you could be wrong, right? Many often. I think this is the biggest part of training your mind, that of how do you listen to your intuition, which is telling you constantly, and still be able to have an opposing thought of, okay, my intuition is saying no, but can I give it some more time and see if there is something else? Or my intuition is saying yes, can I go deeper into and verify what my intuition is saying? So as an investor, I think my fundamental challenge has been that how do I train myself to look at my instinct and not ignore it, but factor it in my decision process as I go. And quite often I have seen that first impression in the first couple of minutes is different than what I ended up in the call with, right? And that to me has been an important humbling learning after listening to many pitches across last few years.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's really hard judging within that whatever you call a 5-minute elevator pitch or a 1 hour. But as Manish pointed out, I think the first impression you make the best really with anything, right? You're going on a date or anything, pretty much you're trying to get on a date with somebody. you're trying to get the first impression. So that's where I really feel entrepreneur, sending their bio to make sure like let the investor know their bio, because first thing we are looking at the team, right? The who started the company, why they started it. I try to get really within first 5 minutes, why are they doing this one? Because as all of us know, like it's very hard, right? Doing a startup is the most difficult thing. You're giving up almost 10 years of your life, right? It may successful, may not be successful, right? Because a very high risk thing you're taking it. So I try to get really whether they're starting their life right now, are they in the beginning of their life? They just graduated from college, and this is the one thing they're going to focus on 24/7. Are they really in their 40s now, trying to kind of see this business they can do on the side right now? Maybe they can jump into the business after really somebody invested. So I think I try to kind of get their take on in the first few minutes. Once that really said, then of course you focus on the concept, as Manish pointed out, then why we should do it, right? Next 30 minutes we focus on the, is this business big enough and all that. I think we'll get into all of the stuff, but really, I think that first impression, the team is the most important thing. If we can really make, and really try to connect with investor with other social media. I really have seen when I have connected with these entrepreneurs, before the pitch, right? Through a friend, through really, directly talking to them via LinkedIn or whatever it is, right? I think it makes a big difference. It humanizes you. In that way, really, you're getting a lot more from that investor than just strictly getting to the business side of it. I think that's where I really feel if you can connect human level, I think you can, definitely take the next steps.
Awesome. Yeah, just my bit of addition on that is there's this very notorious Bangalore-based fund, very close to where Manish's office is at. For our viewers and listeners here, they missed Ola, they missed Oyo, they missed a lot of companies because they felt those entrepreneurs can't scale up. So I think we are as human as our entrepreneurs are. It's not arrogance, it's perception, it's a bunch of things like what Dayakar said and what Manish said. You're trying to get the human element there, but it's basis your mind and your core gut what you feel is right and what is not right. So I think that kind of answers the question for hopefully everyone here. Another very pressing question, and I think 2020 has been this year where practically every pitch deck that I see has these three elements, which is Sam, Som, and Tam. Right? It's like the year of Sam, Som, Tom. Now the problem is, Dayakar, more so for Manish and me, since we operate out of India, and I know you do look at India too. For a country of 1.3 billion people, right? The Sam, Som, Tom is great, right? I mean, every pitch we see, practically every business seems like a, it seems like a decacorn, if not a unicorn. Now the problem is the entrepreneurs are, of course, told to make their pitch decks with these fancy numbers on board. But as investors, we kind of tend to overlook them because, it's very generic in nature. So one question which a lot of entrepreneurs want us to answer is, what do you really want in the pitch deck? What do you really want? Is Sam, Som, Tam not enough?
I can go first. I think number one thing really, in the pitch deck, really, I always try to tell people it should not be more than 10 slides. I think if it's more than 10 slides, then really, as Manish pointed out, the investor, will not pay attention. So, and I think you do need to have really some of this stuff. I think, as you mentioned, India being 1.3 billion people, especially if you are building on the consumer stack, everything is big, right? You can really, deliver, fresh meat, there's so many people to, maybe 500 million people you can serve, really, more than bigger than the whole US put together. So I think but then you come to B2B side, that's where really we kind of focus on, right? We focus mainly B2B, software. So on that, really, we look for really, are they solving a problem? I almost kind of, the number one question I try to ask, entrepreneur, if they already have customers or maybe, tried some pilots, are you giving a painkiller or are you giving a vitamin? If you are giving a painkiller, enterprise software will buy it. If it's a vitamin, they will delay it. They will take 1 year. They will say, we're going to buy the software, but they're going to delay a long time. So I think that's what we try to get to. But in that one, really, you do have to have, some numbers, like basically, total available market, as you mentioned, if you have that numbers, And within that, really, where they are right now, I don't have any problem. You don't have to be a first one for everything. Even if you can fall into a category and you can really grow within the category, I would be fine. But if you're creating a new category, you have to be prepared to make sure like you spend enough money and time to create a category. So that's where I try to look at that product market fit, like what I kind of call within the B2B software space.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. So in addition to product market fit, that's a very important point. I think some learnings from this the market sizing bit, right? One is I think the market sizing you see in decks sometimes are not done with enough thought, and that actually gives a poor signal to the investor, right? So I think like for example if there is a company which is targeting a certain type of customers, then we need to peel those layers and try to really identify what the market is, what the pricing is, and then come to whatever numbers you are putting. So I just feel that if the entrepreneur has put a number out of Google search or something like that with not enough thought, then it doesn't add any value to our discussion. But at the same time, if someone has done that thought, it reflects in how that slide is presented. And that is actually something that I also learned from the entrepreneur, that how exactly they're thinking about market sizing. And it is then becomes a educative slide rather than just being there.
Sure.
In the kind of investments we do, just another angle to it, we do deep tech and AI. And sometimes what we have seen is very difficult to estimate the market size because they're actually sometimes creating a new market or a new process altogether. In those cases, another things that we have seen. So internally, when we hear something, our team also does market sizing for that business, right? And then try to see. And sometimes we are not able to do it. So other hack or another alternative to this, proxy to this is we have seen is how can we at least see whether the company can go to $100 million in what time frame, with what kind of capital, with what kind of profitability, EBITDA, etc. If I can plan the 0 to 100 journey in some sense, that gives me sometimes a proxy to a market size as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, that Manish and Raghu, Manish and Dayakar, thank you so much. That makes sense. Just to take Dayakar's point, which was a painkiller versus a vitamin. There are some startups or some spaces, right, like cybersecurity, where they don't believe in painkiller or vitamin. They believe in something like an immunity booster, where for them SAM-TAM is created. They scare you into the deck. Do you know everything around you is insecure? Your phone is listening to you. Your email is being hacked. Everything is going to be hacked. Look at the sample size here. All of us are going to be, at the mercy of large tech companies. So I think, Manish, I aptly put it that, as investors, we are not really looking at that slide if it's not been put or not been made with numbers which actually make sense. Simple Google searches or, a KPMG report or a XYZ report is not enough, is what we understand. I know we briefly touched upon the next point, which was the human side of a founder and the relationship that we as investors should have with them. Personally, before every investment that I'm actually not just investment, before I even, do a second level call with a founder, I stalk them. Like I literally stalk them myself. So I'm Googling them, I'm Facebooking them, I'm checking them on LinkedIn. I'm even checking their Instagram feeds to see, is this guy parting way too much for the money that he has raised? So what do you guys make of it? How closely connected are you with your founders? Do you think, because there's also a school of thought, right, which says that too much emotion is not that great, right? We are in the business of making money. Why are we getting emotionally attached to people or to businesses, right? Warren Buffett, very famously mentioned that I do get married to the businesses that I invest in, but when the time is right, I do get out. Look at the case of him selling all the airline stocks that he had at the start of this year. So, would love to hear your thoughts around this.
Sure. So as you I think I remember I also got this lesson from my CFO when he raised $55 million in 2000. We're trying to get very emotional about because of what happened after 9/11. We could not go public, and then really trying to kind of cut down the cost. it's very, very emotional, right? When you had to even let people go. I think the one thing he said, like the anchor, you had to think this is not your baby anymore. It's a business. You have taken money from somebody, and and you had to make like this company survives. Same way, I think like when we investing somebody's money, right? We have raised money from some other people, as you said. We had to invest this money in multiple companies, and to make sure like we are getting a good return for our investors. So in that really, but there's a human side really definitely I have seen and helps really understanding where they are, right? They also go through a lot of emotions, especially if they are in their early 20s, they are going through, whatever, their life. At the same time, if they are in their 30s or 40s, if they have kids and all that stuff they go through. But some of them really, they kind of start companies after they've gone through some journey of really success in working in a company, or maybe worked in one or two startups before. They do not have a lot of other stuff going on. I think it makes a definitely difference really when you connect with them, available 24/7. That's what I tell my entrepreneurs. One of the companies actually, he needed a payroll on Monday, so he called me on the weekend. So I had to make sure like send the money without any paperwork on Monday morning. So I think because I knew like this guy, will make it happen. So I think that's where really having that personal partnership with them, it does help like where they would take the company.
Yeah, I think in my mind, it's not about emotional attachment, but an emotional understanding and understanding of the person. So, to your question, Mohit, I think the founders that we work with who are part of our portfolio, or the founders that we are evaluating uh, at early stage, probably at any stage. Actually, I always believe that venture investing is not about investing in businesses. I think it is about investing in people. So the whole people part of the understanding is super important, and you do want to spend the time to know them.
Yeah.
One way is like you are doing is that you're doing social profile, you're trying to scan that. uh, my style is different because I just want to just sit with them for an hour and just talk to them, and may not be about business, just to kind of get a feel of who they are, what they are. So everybody, see, each one of us have developed some style to understand the founders we work with, but understanding the founders is the key. Method may be different. And in terms of supporting our portfolio founders, of course, I mean, we need to be around, especially when their chips are down, and what kind of support we can provide. But having said all that, these relationships are tough. You, you are not, you have the pressure of raising your own money, having invested in them. So there is some fiduciary responsibility you are carrying, and that actually plays out in how you relate to a founder when things go wrong, or when they make repeated mistakes sometimes, when there are things that you want to do differently and you see founders doing differently. There are those cases will also happen. And I don't think, at least I have not been able to do this, that our relationship with founders are always smooth. And I don't think any relationship for that matter is smooth. I think so, but that a relationship has to be genuine. I think that is more important in
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah, just to follow on question for both of you guys, somebody from the audience has asked, what do we value the most? Do we value the founders, the financial ratios that the startup is showcasing, or the ESG angle? For those of you who don't know ESG, it's environmental, social, and corporate governance. Uh, Actually, it's the first time anyone's asked me on ESG for startup investing. Uh, we would love to hear your thoughts, guys.
Okay, Manish, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a single point decision making, right? You want to back a great founder working on a great product in a great space, right? And that is the combination you are constantly trying to find. Now, the question comes when you can't see other things, like say you are investing in a very, very early stage company where there is a very, you've just met the team, they don't have a product and a market identified so very clearly, or they may pivot, and then therefore your fundamental thesis of investment will be based on founders. But as they go along in the journey, there are more things to look at. What is most important is, let us say everything else is great, would you invest in a founder where you are not convinced? I think that would be hard. At least for me, it will be very hard to do that. So it is a very, very necessary condition that the confidence in the founder is there in any at any stage.
But Manish, do you look at ESG?
ESG, we actually, ESG is an outcome. We don't look at it as a sort of a, although we are invested by DFIs, so we do make a ESG report for all companies. So this is something that we do very diligently, but it is not part of our evaluation criteria.
Sure. Daikar?
Yeah. So yeah, I think definitely it's a founder, right? Like so, in our fund one, we did 17 investments in the beginning. Most of these companies did not have any revenue. Basically, they had, some of them had concepts, had a prototype, and maybe just about to get a first customer, right? So I think depending on where, when now we definitely look at really, right? Do they have some customers? Do they have any recurring revenue? How these customers are staying, right? Whatever. Sometimes what happens, they get one first customer really because of their, whatever the relationship they have. But are they growing within that customer? I don't care, like even they started with $1,000 per month or $2,000 per month, but have they grown within that customer to next $5,000 per month revenue, right? So I think now we look at, of course, the founder is number one thing, and the team also, right? I think one thing, hopefully someday I'd like to write a book about all the founders I met. If I look at some of the companies, we whatever you can call it, they're not successful. It's not because of the concept. It's really because of the team could not jive together sometimes. So as Manish pointed out, really that's where, as an investor, really, you go through so much of emotions because, like they could do better, but really, sometimes they don't hire right people. They try to hire same set of people, skills they have. If they are a good product guys, they try to hire only product people versus hiring somebody, has a good, sales side skills and all that. I think that's where really I try to look at right now that three-legged stool. Do we have like a good, CTO, a good visionary, and the CEO also maybe a founder, but good business side of it. But did they get also somebody who could really, get on the road and try to sell this product to customers? If they have three, then I feel like really, ready to go.
Sure. So my next question, I'd actually reserved it for the last, and I know because we have less time at hand. This is one of the most controversial questions out there, and I cannot finish this panel without asking you guys this question, right? Mm-hmm. So our panel is called a peek in the mind of an investor, and everyone's been asking, and there's so many jokes and there's memes which are on multiple social platforms, which is this digital arms race that investors are in. Right? We are all running for Twitter blue ticks. We are all, and I'm guilty. I'm guilty because I've also fallen for this FOMO because of my friends from the same industry who said, listen, dude, don't create content on LinkedIn. Twitter is where you have to be. You need to tweet every day about what's in your mind, what's happening out there, what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the world, global macros, micro. You have to be a brand of yourself for you to be able to attract great quality founders who apparently find you on Twitter and pitch to you. To me, it's not happened. So I want to hear your thoughts on. I know Daikar, you're not too active on Twitter. Manish is just like a celebrity, right? So he doesn't need to be active. If he just like puts his name out there are like 10,000 people who just like that particular. So we have to talk about this digital arms race. Why is it happening, and is this the new norm?
Yeah, I think it is there, obviously, very much there. Somehow I had to learn Twitter a few years back, not because I was in venture business, but that time I was doing consulting business, but I never got to tweet like every day. Forget just impossible for me. But whatever, yes, whatever plans I have got from Twitter have always been junk. I think there are people who are just thinking that Twitter is the way to get into VCs. I don't know, man. I don't believe that. And I think there are, to me, I think sometimes we were doing this session with some young VCs also sometime back in Pi Fellows. And this whole importance of building a brand to be a VC has just gone out of proportion in my head. And I just believe that it is not actually about brand. It is about reputation, and there is a difference between the two. I can build a reputation without being on a Twitter, right? And my reputation will come with what I do day in, day out with my founders, with the companies that I'm working with, etc., etc. And that reputation will build long-term success. I can tweet some smart things over here and there. I don't know. I may create a brand, but I may not create a reputation again. So my vote is, if we can turn this dialogue about building a brand to building a reputation, I think we will create probably a more solid ecosystem.
I totally agree. As you say, like, I'm not that active on Twitter, so you can see, like, maybe it's also a generational thing too. So for me, like, I think what happened, you're right. Like, I also get so many, advice. I should say, like, input from a lot of our team and everything. Hey, you had to be active. You should be posting whatever you are sending to us. You should post on Twitter too. Like, why didn't you do that one and all that? So I think, like, there's a value to it. I think, like, kind of getting your thoughts. Other people also could comment back and all that. I think that's where I feel like it could be very valuable. Where people not just liking it, but like they're giving some comments, what you wrote about it and all that. It's very good. Recently I never did, but this year, finally I have started writing, something on Forbes part, as like a few articles actually about especially the what I learned. I try to give from my heart exactly what I learned as an entrepreneur, what I'm learning as every day we are learning, right? I feel I learn so much from every time when I have a pitch coming into my office, or like whenever somebody pitches presentation to me. So I think there's a value about this whole social network, but as Manish pointed out, I think it's gone too much. In my opinion, it's become too much. I think what's happening, like, right, we have this established VCs. There are a lot of good young entrepreneurs. They also become VCs. They want to make sure, like, really they also get really whatever the Facebooks of the world and all, they get to see. So they want entrepreneurs to think they're a celebrity. So that way they come to them. But as Manish pointed out, I think really end of the day, what do you have done for that CEO? That's what I tell whenever I have any pitch from anybody. Please, I will give you a number of all my CEOs. You call any one of them. Sometimes I have a very hard discussions with them, but really they will know I'm there for them for 24/7. I think that's what the reputation really counts. Are you there for them? Really, any one of them. It could be like hiring a person, or they're struggling with their founder. Like one or two times, like I had an issue with one of the entrepreneur had a problem with their partner, right? So how do we help them to solve those issues? And really customers. I think that's one thing really we focus on. Can we really get, if they're doing a $1 million revenue, can we get them to extra $1 million revenue within 12 to 18 months through our contacts? Not just giving a contacts, but really closing a deal for them, right? I think that's what really, we try to build a reputation with, giving those results.
Sure. All right. Okay, guys. So thank you so much, both of you, for that answer. For the audience out there, Kunal Shah can tweet because he's raised 800 million. For those of you who've not raised money and still believe in giving out gyan, like what Dayakar and Manish said, your reputation is not by the number of likes that you have. It's by the people who speak highly about you. So spend less time on Twitter. Only spend it if genuinely it is adding value to your life, to your business contacts, or whatever it may be. I would like to come to the final part of this panel, which is which is a question which has been in my mind for the longest time. And we were preparing our pitch deck, and I asked one of our associates to build this particular slide for me. Very India focused slide, which is how big is the Indian VC ecosystem versus what it is in developed markets like the US. And that number is startling, right? So India VC practice in its entirety is less than what US VCs have raised in half a year. How much of a disruption do you think is up there? I need very quick answers because Mr. Bill Gates is in the parallel track. A lot of people are going to go there. So guys, 30 seconds for each one of you. Would love your thoughts.
I think, like, really, again, I don't have the numbers. It looks like you have the numbers with you, but I can see it is growing, right? Like we also, thanks to people like Manish and all that, really established right now. There is a VC market. Interesting, like for me, when I first started my fund one, when I talked about VC fund in Hyderabad, a lot of people would not understand. But now even my cousins understand what the VC ecosystem is. So a lot of thanks to people like Manish and other who really have been working in the ecosystem. I think India is definitely, is going to be a place like I will see the next unicorns coming out from India, because if you look at, like, there are 400 unicorns, right now in the US. I think there are 20 in India. I think I'm going to see, like, with the next 4 years, 100, 150 unicorn from India. So the money will be coming into India. There's no question about it.
Awesome.
Very quick
Manish?
one from. I think we do ourselves a great disservice when we compare constantly against US, China, in all these things. I think that is
Fair.
not something you want to do. If you really want to compare, you should also compare what it takes to build a company in India versus US. Some of our companies in $500,000 have gone from lab idea to a market, which other companies will take $5 to $10 million. Right? So there is this parity as well. But we don't really need to compare ourselves. I think we need to just build on what we have done last year versus this year versus next year, and how much we can, contribute to the world.
Awesome. Manish, very, very relevant point, not to make that comparison between what's happening in the US and China and India. With that, I'd like to wrap this session and let you guys go ahead and enjoy the session with Mr. Bill Gates. Daikar, Manish, thank you so much for taking time out.
Thank you, Mohit. Thank you, Manish.
Thank you so much. And I hope for our audience, they had a pretty interactive session and they could get into the minds of two astute investors here. 2.5. I'll take myself as half.
No, you're good. Thank you. Enjoy it.
So much, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.